Welcome back, everyone. If you're trying to figure out how high-level rules actually play out on the ground, well, you're in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we're going to demystify the Prison Rape Elimination Act, specifically zeroing in on how it operates within North Carolina correctional institutions. Basically, we're going to bridge that massive gap between what's written in a dense, heavy government manual and what actually happens during the daily, unpredictable realities of confinement.
Think about this for a second. Does a safety policy actually matter if nobody uses it? Sounds like a trick question, right? But in a correctional environment, it's literally the most vital question you can ask. A beautifully written binder sitting gathering dust on a warden's shelf, that doesn't protect anyone. So today, we're really digging into how a crucial federal mandate translates, or, sometimes completely fails to translate into real-world practice.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The PREA framework. 2. PREA as a system. 3. Unique challenges in jails. 4. Common compliance risks. And finally, 5. Creating a PREA culture.
Starting right off with Part 1, the PREA framework.
So, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, or PREA, is a federal law aimed at slashing sexual abuse and harassment for folks in custody. But here is the absolute critical thing to grasp right out of the gate. In the corrections context, complying with PREA is not just some policy preference. It's not a nice-to-have guideline. It is a core operational requirement. It fundamentally dictates how a facility handles everything, from intake screening and staff training to reporting systems, investigations, and those big facility audits. What's really interesting about this is how the U.S. Department of Justice organizes the whole mandate. It's built on 4 key pillars: prevention, detection, response, and accountability. And these pillars govern the full continuum of custody. Honestly, in North Carolina, it doesn't matter if you're talking about a massive state prison or a tiny county jail. The underlying expectation is exactly the same. Agencies absolutely must take reasonable, documented steps to protect incarcerated people from sexual victimization. Moving right along to Part 2, PREA as a system. If you only take one thing away from this explainer, please let it be this core concept. PREA compliance is not just a single form you fill out at intake, and it's definitely not some annual checklist you furiously complete right before an audit. It's a living, breathing system. Genuine, actual compliance requires active, interconnected, daily engagement from every single person working in that facility. This brilliantly illustrates how a facility's safety relies entirely on an unbroken chain of actions. It's like a giant puzzle. Look at step 1. Literally within moments of arrival, intake staff have to actively spot risk factors. Are they vulnerable? Are they potentially abusive? Then step 2, the line staff, the officers interacting with the population every day, have to know exactly how to handle it if someone actually comes forward. Step 3, if an incident occurs, supervisors must step in immediately to preserve evidence and separate the parties involved. And finally, step 4, administrators have to analyze the data, document compliance, and fix deficiencies before they snowball into repeat problems. If even one of these steps fails, the entire system breaks down. Which brings us to Part 3, unique challenges in jails. Let's move to and see how this builds on the ground, because state structure and local control shape drastically different realities. State-run prisons generally have a pretty stable environment, right? You've got longer-term custody, standardized audits, centralized inmate orientation. County jails, on the other hand, are pretty chaotic by comparison. I mean, a busy county jail might process more individuals in a single weekend than a state prison does in a whole month. They're juggling incredibly high intake volumes, rapidly changing populations, and very short-term holding periods. Because populations are shifting so incredibly fast in jails, the stakes during the intake process are astronomically high. Let's really slow down and focus on this timeline for a second. Point 1, within minutes of arrival, that initial screening happens. Point 2, within just a few hours, immediate housing decisions are being made based on that exact screening. Point 3, those critical first few days of confinement. If a jail fails to flag someone's vulnerability at that very first point, at intake, they might accidentally place that person at a dramatically higher risk during those crucial first hours or days. Make no mistake, this is when the risk of victimization can be at its absolute highest. Now for Part 4, common compliance risks. So what actually trips facilities up? Well, here are the 3 main hurdles that totally undermine compliance. First is inconsistency.
A facility could have a phenomenal policy, but if the day shift handles things completely differently than the night shift, the whole protection net falls apart. Second is incomplete documentation. If you aren't recording the screening, the training, or the incident response, you simply can't prove you're compliant when the audit rolls around. But the third and the crucial point here is underreporting due to fear of retaliation. In corrections, fear is a massive barrier. If people don't feel safe speaking up, the abuse just stays hidden in the shadows. Facilities absolutely must create reporting pathways that are safe, accessible, and credible.
We also have to factor in the physical reality of these buildings. Facilities in North Carolina have to figure out how to adapt federal standards to their local conditions. Older buildings, for example, physically limit line of sight, which makes supervision so much harder. Then you have crowded housing, which inevitably skyrockets tension and inmate vulnerability. Add frequent transfers to the mix, and you disrupt the continuity of care and risk assessments entirely. The most effective programs are the ones that look at these local complications head on and adapt to overcome them without ever compromising the actual integrity of the standard itself.
And finally, part 5, creating a PREA culture.
So, what does real success look like today? Well, the North Carolina Department of Public Safety expects continuous improvement. This isn't some one-time set-it-and-forget-it project. Staff need to know the reporting chain by heart. Incarcerated people need clear, accessible orientations about their rights. Administrators have to actively review incident trends. Basically, if you're claiming it on paper, you better be able to measure it in your daily operations. Ultimately, it all boils down to this. PREA compliance is best understood as a culture issue as much as a legal one. You can have all the right policies neatly typed out, but if your staff aren't trained properly, if reporting options are murky, or if supervisors drop the ball on allegations, the policy is essentially useless. True safety, that is generated by a culture of better screening, much stronger training, and highly accountable responses across the board. Which leaves us with this final, truly vital question. For administrators, for line staff, for policymakers watching this, the most important question is not whether you have a PREA policy tucked away in a manual somewhere. The real question is your policy actually working in real life? Are people genuinely safer today because of how your system operates? Because in a correctional setting, the answer to that question matters every single day. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those tough questions, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down the systems that shape our world.